And welcome back. George Norrie with Randall Fitzgerald. We're talking about his book, The Tao of Intuitive Luck. Randall, how do people distinguish the difference between truly the intuition that they have or a wandering thought process in the head that just puts all kinds of things in your mind?
There actually are quite a few ways that people can distinguish intuition from delusion. And these are, what I'm going to give you is taken from a variety of clinical psychologists who have studied this. But first of all, is the voice that you feel and sense within your head, the intuitive voice, does it sound authoritarian or critical? If so, generally it's not intuition. Does the voice sound judgmental or shaming? If that's the case, then usually it's not intuition that's speaking to you. Does the voice appear suddenly, or do you recognize that this is a familiar voice? You can generally feel into whether the voice is authentic intuition or not, based on separating your own habits of mind. Usually it's information that's new to you. It comes spontaneously and suddenly. The voice is clear. Some people feel it rather in their gut, which is where the gut hunch term comes from. Other people feel it in their heart. Interestingly, George, there's a lot of research that's been done on how men and women feel and sense intuition separately. Men tend to come up with these intuitive signals most often in their gut, whereas women tend to come up with these intuitive signals in their heart. And a lot of research has confirmed this.
That's pretty amazing all by itself, isn't it?
It is indeed. You know, I mean, most people don't realize that the gut hunch is quite literally true because we have two brains. I know that's going to make some people's heads spin, but we have a brain that is in our gastrointestinal tract. It's an area in which there are just as many neurons and neurotransmitters as in the brain between our two ears. And this has been very well documented. There's an anatomy professor at Columbia University, for instance, Michael Gershon, who wrote a book called The Second Brain, which looked at how we have this supplemental brain in our gastrointestinal tract. And even more research built on top of that has found that we often in our intestinal tract receive intuition about the future anywhere from 5 to 7 seconds in advance. And that's been measured in many studies that have been done, showing that the gut hunch is quite literally true. And it's the same with the heart. A lot of research at the Heart Math Institute, which is a research organization in Northern California, they've looked at the heart from the standpoint of whether it changes, either accelerates or decelerates, based on receiving intuitive information. And indeed it does, and it depends on the person whether you are more inclined to receive intuitive information through your gut, through your heart, or sometimes just as visions in your first brain between our two ears.
How many people, Randall, feel that thing in the gut, but they don't deliver on it, they don't act on it, and they end up getting burned?
Right. Well, if you're highly rational, if you're the proverbial left-brain person who thinks that intuition is something that is not real or is reserved for other people, and you sort of are in denial about your capacity for experiencing intuition, then yes, indeed, you're going to tend to disregard the sensation as something that might be akin to indigestion, a momentary indigestion, rather than what it really is, which is an opportunity for your body to give you important information.
Let's go to the phones. We'll start with Scott in Mount Vernon, Washington, on the wild card line. Hey, Scott, thanks for calling.
Oh, you're very welcome, George, and hello to you and Mr. Fitzgerald.
Hi.
I have a quick question and a quick little story. Do you think intuitive luck would intervene or alter fate and or divine intervention? And the reason I ask is a couple years ago I had a heart issue and I had to go to the hospital and I amassed thousands of dollars of bills. And shortly thereafter, for some reason, I happened to buy a Powerball ticket and a lotto ticket, and I won $10,000 on the
Wow, great.
Which was amazing. One number away from $44 million. But that being said, I made just enough money to pay off all my my hospital bills. So what's your take on where that may have come from?
There are a number of ways to look at it. I have a feeling. Let me ask you a question first. Do you think of yourself as an intuitive person in general?
Well, once in a while, I won't call it a gut feeling because for me, I know this sounds peculiar, but I seem to get it at the base of between my shoulder blades, at the base of my head, or the top of my spine. So I do react to that, but I pride myself on being one of the kindest, most helpful people I can be. So I kind of believe in karma, but that's a whole different subject, right?
Well, it could be. Obviously, and I don't go into this in this book. I probably will in a subsequent book looking at what karma means as an energetic force based on people's thoughts and actions in this life. So it sounds like you were benefited in a time of need by intuitive luck. Can you think of other times where you had a need that wasn't necessarily a medical expense, but it was something else that you needed at the time that came unexpectedly?
I'll give you another one. My wife is disabled, and we've been married 37 years. And she would love to go camping, but we can't. She can't sleep on the ground on an air mattress or anything in a tent. A friend at work who happened to be an auto and marine mechanic had a motorhome for sale for $1,800.
That's it?
Perfect. Wow. Yes. He just wanted to unload it. And it's beautiful, low miles, and I'm able to take my wife to the beach and to the mountains, and she has a comfortable bed to sleep in and heat and warmth. So that came at like an opportune time. For sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like you have a sensitive, intuitive guidance system that can be even more highly developed than it already is. Have you consciously set about trying to develop that guidance system for yourself?
I have not. I just, every day is a blessing, and like I said, I treat people kind, and I don't expect it in return, but it's something I should probably pursue. According to you, you think I might even be better off?
Well, I certainly think that you would find it beneficial in a variety of ways. You might even be developing even better karma than you already have, as it sounds like you have, and certainly being kind and compassionate and putting forth that energy to the outside world, into other people, is beneficial. But the more intuitive you are, the more you develop your intuition, my feeling is that you're going to be quite pleasantly surprised by the result.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate you being part of the program. And I was going to ask you about karma. I've told this story on the show before, Randall, but I have a very difficult time walking past a homeless person without giving them some kind of money. And it doesn't have to be a lot, but I just feel as if I'm obligated to help them. And it seems, and I do it from the heart. I'm not doing it because I don't want to expect any gain or anything like that. But it seems like every time I do this, whether I give them $5 or $20 or whatever, I'll go to the post office or something, and all of a sudden there's an unexpected check from my insurance company for $1,500 or something like that. It seems to happen all the time. Why is that?
I have a feeling that, again, using this metaphor of the energetic, of intuitive luck, there's an energetic of compassion as well. And once you're tapped into that energetic, and once you're able to transfer it to others through an act, not just empathy, which is, the thought, but compassion is the action. By taking that action based on an empathetic feeling, you are sowing in the world an energy that's going to rebound to your benefit.
Is any of this God-given?
I suspect it is. It's not an area that I have studied. It's an area that I have some intuitive sensibilities about, and I tend to think that there is an inherent level that we were born with that guides us, but we all have the capacity to develop it even more, and whether we take the steps necessary to sharpen the compassionate side of us or not is a choice that we make every day.
Let's go to Joe, Long Island, New York, east of the Rockies. Hey, Joe, go ahead.
Randall, I have two more general questions, second on the brain. My first question is, does this lend into giving yourself freedom, some space to experiment with intuition in the sense that you may not be a superstar at it right away, and you don't want to up front totally rely on being great at intuition in any given situation, and just see how you do as you go along. And then on the brain, they say some people see the forest too much, the big picture. Some people are too focused on the trees. So, and then the other thing about the brain is this idea that the brain starts to just make its own database, and you get preconceived notions from that about other people, about yourself, about situations, and then you get a confirmation bias right away, like, okay, I start to play this sport, I didn't have a good day, I shouldn't even pursue this at all. Or I talk to this person and they seem like this and I'm confirming this, and then maybe you should have gone further in talking to this person as a possible friend, for example.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you, what is your intuition? And it sounds like you're someone who balances your mental capabilities with intuition. What does your intuition quite often tell you that's on target?
Well, I just think it's a fine line. I think it's a close call in many cases. So I've dabbled in extreme sports, but I think I've cut it close. It's made it it's just intuition as to where to pull back at the last second, and that is a little precarious, I think.
It can be. Do you trust your intuition in a general sort of way?
I would say I maybe have put too much of a fallback into it and trusted it too much at times, and I should have looked into things further rather than just go by intuition, and kind of made it with kind of doubled up with intuition and something else.
Mm-hmm. Well, it gets back to what we were discussing earlier about being able to distinguish between intuition and habits of mind or delusions or obsessive compulsiveness, whatever it might be. Part of the process I've discovered for myself, at least, in trusting intuition is from the experimentation, simply learning to experiment in certain situations. I mean, it can be innocuous. It can be like you're standing in a grocery store line, you're trying to decide which line you should be in, and the rational part is saying, oh, this is the shorter line. It looks like it's going to be the fastest. But then the intuitive voice comes up and says, something's going to happen in this line where the line is going to stop for some reason, and you need to go into another line. And if you trust that voice, and I've experimented with this just in grocery stores, for instance, and discovered when I go to that other line and follow the voice, I usually find that it's the shorter line, even though it seems longer. So it's an ongoing trust process from experimentation.
How much of this, Randall, is just being aware of your surroundings, events that are happening, future trends, and just having the smarts to look a little beyond where you are today?
Certainly that plays a role, George. To give you an example, I've had this experience a number of times, maybe your listeners have as well, where I'm sort of driving along the highway of life, and there's very little traffic, and I don't see consciously anything subtle going on to tell me that I should slow down, but I sense that up ahead over the next hill, there's a speed trap, and I slow down in response to that thought, and sure enough, and this happens again and again with me, I'll go over the hill, and there's a speed trap. And if I'd been going the speed that I was before the intuitive hit, I would have gotten a ticket. So those sorts of situations can occur again and again in our daily lives, and quite often we're just not aware of it.
And I use an example now, Randall, that streaming video is all over the place with Amazon Prime, Netflix, and all the other streaming outlets that we have. But they destroyed the Blockbuster video stores. Somebody at Blockbuster should have had the brains or the intuition to say, there's going to be another technology where people aren't coming to us in the stores getting these DVDs, but just with a merely click of your clicker on your television, you're going to get the movie, and we'll be feeding it from you from our home office. And Did nobody know what was going on? I mean, they had all that money invested in bricks and mortar, and they got stuck.
That seems to happen again and again with new technologies that make the old obsolete. So the extent to which the true intuitive entrepreneurs, the true intuitive business tycoons are able to sense trends and to ride those trends makes or break whatever they're doing in life, whether it's in business or in their personal relationships.
Is that intuition or just smarts or a combination of both?
I suspect that it's a combination of both. It's just, going back again to Napoleon Hill and his Think and Grow Rich when he did all those pioneering interviews back in the 1930s with the tycoons of business, trying to find out what made them so successful. It wasn't just intuition that he found that was in common among all of these people. It was also they were able to sense opportunities. They were able to use their intellect and harness it in such a way that they could get glimpses of the future. Exactly.
Randall, we're going to come back and take final calls with you in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie, our final segment with Randall Fitzgerald, The Tao of Intuitive Luck. Well done with this book, Randall, and the research behind it.
Oh, thanks, George. I appreciate that. It was a love fest of research for the last 2 decades.
Have you used these techniques for yourself?
I have. I have used them in a variety of ways, and I'm still a learner. I'm a journalist. I tend to observe mostly, but for this book, I also tried to create a synergy with the 5 intuitive luck techniques that would benefit me in a variety of ways. And, to give you an example, I met up with a guy who was a sports bettor in Las Vegas, and he had a dream incubation technique that he uses to make his choices in the sports world for the winners of games. And I met up with him and learned his technique, And I did a dream incubation that was successful, in which I was able to see the winning numbers on several slot machines, the winning combinations that came up. And at the same casino that I had in the dream, I went to, and it all came about. In order to verify this, I had some witnesses in advance. I told them about what I was doing, that I was incubating this dream, and it was an experiment to see if indeed it would work. And so in the book, I have statements from people that verified that I went through this process, and it was successful, and I won money, and I sort of proved to myself that it's something that everyone is capable of doing if you have the right frame of mind, if you go through the right series of steps in a process.
How important is positivity versus negativity?
Well, it's very important because negativity can short-circuit anything.
I agree.
One of the reasons why people don't trust their intuition, for instance, that's a negative voice that comes up. But we have multiple voices in our heads, in our minds, that come up, the voice of inspiration, the voice of hope, the voice of trust, etc. And if we learn which voices serve us, the positive voices, and we learn how to suppress the negative voices that don't serve us, then we're usually much better off, especially financially.
Let's go to the phones. Wildcard line. Ron is with us in the state of Tennessee. Hello, Ronald. Go ahead.
Yes, sir, Mr. Norrie and Mr. Fitzgerald. I appreciate you taking my call.
Thank you.
First of all, I apologize for calling on the international line. And at the end of this call, you can just provide me with a number that I can get in touch with you. Second thing is I got a question for Mr. Fitzgerald.
Sure.
Is there a possibility that my son, who's passed away, could help me to know or learn of something without the conscious use of reasoning and help me feel apprehension and understanding and to, guide me? I think guidance is the word, and then help me to make the correct decisions.
Interesting question of whether the dead can help the living in this way. What do you think, Randall?
Well, I must confess I don't cover that particular subject in the book, and I haven't researched it. But my feeling is, and I would have to ask a series of questions of your caller to really determine how intuition may play a role here. But it seems very conceivable to me, and I'm speculating that there is possibly some intuitive connection, some guidance that can be discerned from a person that you're very close to who has passed on. I certainly would find stories like that of interest if you have one to tell.
And by the way, Ron, tomorrow night in the program, in our second hour, we have Paul Selig coming on, and he is a channeler. He would be also appropriate to ask that question to, if you can get in. Let's go next to Lucille in Modesto, California. Hi, Lucille. Welcome to the show.
Hello again. You guys are fun.
Yes, we are.
I had a couple of short stories, and the first one, I was saving money to pay a bill, and I had like $250, and I heard about this sale going on with houses or something. So I walked in just to ask questions, and the guy says, well, are you, and he calls me by my first name, and I said yes. Anyway, the next thing I know, we're doing paperwork, and I'm going out the door. Anyway, I've heard for $250 down, I purchased a house that was.
You're kidding me.
No.
You still in that house?
Yeah, I sure am.
Well, I guess your intuition worked well on that. $250 down payment got you that house, huh?
And anyway, So that was the first story. And the next story, I was, actually, I was in Taiwan, and I was learning some Chinese, and we were playing cards, a group of us, and I didn't have any idea what I was playing. It was a Chinese game. I never did find out. But anyway, I won the first time, then I won the second game, and then I won the third.
Beginner's luck at work.
and this man jumps up, and you know how some cultures sound angry when they're just talking. And he jumps up and scoots his chair and looks angry to me, and he has a lot of energy with his words. And he says, "Ni han bang." And I thought he said, "Ni han bang." Anyway, so the minute he was out of sight, I asked my girlfriend, I says, "How come he called me stupid?" I said, "I won all 3 games." And she says, "He didn't call you stupid. He said you were brilliant."
How about that?
You were tapped in. You were channeling luck in those 3 instances.
Can you end up winning with luck, Randall, and not even know what you're doing?
Oh, yes. I think we do that with beginner's luck all the time. Beginner's luck, some of the characteristics are it's our first time. We don't know exactly what we're doing. We don't even know the rules sometimes, as in this case. We have an open attitude. We have an excited attitude. We don't have attachment to an outcome. All of these characteristics with beginner's luck quite often can result in a luck streak which defies the law of averages.
Let's go to Tom in Massachusetts. Hello, Thomas. Go ahead.
Mr. Fitzgerald, I kind of feel that intuition is only truthful 70 or 90% of the time. And could you give me an example of trickster stuff that can interfere with your tuition?
What can interfere with tuition? Go ahead, Randall.
Yeah, I can. I cover that because I researched with a lot of experts on this particular subject. And intuition can be sort of short-circuited by such things as having a full stomach. I mean, sometimes that disrupts the mind-body connection, the sensitivity to where you don't necessarily feel it in your body as you would normally. So a full stomach can do that, and disruptions can occur as a result in the aftermath of vigorous exercise. The onset of an illness, for instance, if you have an illness, that connection between the mind, the body, and intuition quite often is broken. I mean, even your body postures can make a difference. There's research that have shown that when you sleep on your side or your stomach, that's usually less conducive to having intuition percolate, especially in your dream states, than it is if you were sleeping on your back or if you're in a seated position. Anyway, there's a lot of research looking at all these various angles of how best to facilitate intuition and how to avoid short-circuiting the intuitive circuit.
Randall, if a person is depressed or down, is that considered negativity?
Well, it can be, but it's mostly suppression. It's a state, a physical state, in which being able to access intuition is suppressed. And negativity is generally thought of as a mental process, and obviously you can be depressed, have a mental process that results in lethargy and all sorts of other effects in the body, which can undermine the intuitive process as well.
Let's go to Catherine in British Columbia, Canada, west of the Rockies. Hello, Catherine.
Hello, fellas. My father went on a river raft ride, and he fell out of the little raft, and nobody noticed. Oh, man, and he was under for a long time, and he said the third time he tried to, it was his last try. He would have passed out. He said, there's no way he could have. So he went one last try, put his hand out to try to get onto the raft. And that night, I couldn't sleep. I knew something was wrong with Dad. I had this awful fear come over me. So all night, I'm praying for my dad. And it was so strong. And I believe it was God. And just wanted to know what you thought.
Well, I don't see anything about luck there, Randall, but do you want to take a stab at that?
Well, it sort of gets back to what a previous caller had to say about God, about higher power, about spirit, and the connection to intuition, and whether or not we can receive intuitive signals through that channel. And again, I don't cover that in the book, but my feeling is, just from my own experience and what I've observed, is that yes, there is an intuitive channel there that transcends ordinary time and space, and that goes into and connects to the realm of spirit.
Can you transfer luck to another person by being next to them or standing with them?
Yes. In fact, I have stories in that regard of what I personally observed. One example, there's a casino in Northern California, not far from me, called the Cache Creek Casino, where I spent time observing over the course of several days people in the high roller room, especially couples, and to see if they were on luck streaks. And there was one couple in particular that I observed and then interviewed who were on this amazing luck streak. And as I watched, this man had a series of hand pays at slot machines, one after another, and his wife was having the same experience. And she was talking to me, and I was interviewing her, and she happened to push the button, the play button, and won $12,000. So I tried to find out, well, what are you feeling in the moment? And they felt a connection to each other. And it's been shown that brain synchronization, the brain waves, can be synchronized between intimate pairs, and that couples can channel between each other through touch and also through just contact, a sort of energetic flow, and that seems to translate into the realm of luck as well.
Let's go to, well, we're running out of time. The clock has got us already. Randall, this was a fast 2 hours, my friend.
Indeed. With George, with you, it's always a fast 2 hours. I wish it could be longer.
Let's get together and let us know when you update your work, okay?
I will indeed. Thank you for having me once again.
Randall Fitzgerald, website linked up at coasttocoastam.com. The book is called The Tao, T-A-O, The Tao of Intuitive Luck. It's a great read, and pick it up. It may change your luck. Up next, let's talk about the state of this world.